This is TWiT.
All right, we are back from the break, and now it's time to talk about something you may or may not have heard about, but Sony definitely wants you to know about. It is the new PS5 Pro. Joining us to talk about what's new and what you can expect from the device is Kyle Orland, joining us from Ars Technica. Welcome back to the show, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me, Micah.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here. So I would love to just get right into it. First and foremost, we've got a new PS5 Pro, and that must mean that it's got new stuff going on. What are the key hardware upgrades for this device, and how do they actually enhance gaming performance compared to the PS5 that people fought tooth and nail to get when it first came out?
Yeah, this upgrade is all about graphics. They're focused on a larger GPU, which has, I have the numbers here to the side, 45% faster rendering, 67% more compute units, 28% faster video RAM. It all just means better graphics. The target that Sony focused on in their presentation was kind of getting rid of that choice between performance mode and fidelity mode. So fidelity mode would have higher resolutions, but maybe limited to 30 frames per second. Performance mode, you'd get that smooth 60 frames per second, but you might see resolutions a little lower. They want the best of both worlds. They want approaching 4K graphics at 60 frames per second in the highest end games, and that's what they're promising the PS5 Pro will deliver. Approaching
4K graphics. Can you tell me how that translates if I have many a modern TV that is a 4K television. I plug in this PS5 Pro. It does 60 frames per second. It supports 60 frames per second. What am I working with in one of these games?
So it totally depends on the games. I wasn't counting the lines of pixels or anything on this. They have to wait until it comes out to get the full spectrum. But some of the games might be natively 1440p instead of 2000 lines. They do have an upsampling system there called PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. I think it stands for, and they say it's an AI-powered upscaling algorithm where it looks at the raw pixels and kind of fills in those pixels to get it to a 4K image automatically, trying to figure out what color would go on that little edge of the line and then smooth it out. This is especially useful, they say, in crowd scenes, like for far off things in the distance. In a game like Ratchet and Clank, you might see sharper people in the stands. I'm not sure how much that's really going to impact the average viewer, unless you're sitting very close to a very large screen. I'm not really sure that you'll be able to pick out that kind of upsampling. You might get kind of a feeling for it. You might think, oh, something is a little different here, but with the AI super sampling I've seen, it can get a little fuzzy. It's not really a night and day difference that they might want you to think.
Understood. Now let's talk about what, for me as a person who's not super steeped in graphics performance and GPUs and everything else, ray tracing seems like quite the buzzword. And it seems like it's akin to hearing every big tech company talk about AI right now. Yeah. Can you just give me a basic understanding of ray tracing, and then what is going on with the PS5 Pro in terms of its improved GPU and how that is ramped up in terms of ray tracing and higher frame rates?
Ray tracing, the simplest way of thinking of it is calculating every ray of light coming from a light source and how it bounces off a number of things in the environment, sometimes up to 5-7 bounces. Oh, wow. So like on a shiny car in Gran Turismo, before you would see, it's kind of reflective, but now you'll actually see the reflection of the car next to you in ray tracing, and that reflection will bounce back and so forth. It ends up being much more realistic. Your mind tends to notice when these things aren't reflecting correctly because you have a lifetime of experience seeing shiny objects reflecting the world, whereas they've had to come up with tricks before ray tracing. The PS5 Pro says it'll be, I think, 50% faster at this, so you can have the ray tracing effects while keeping that 60 frames per second. You might be able to do ray tracing in more games. You might have more realistic shadows in a game because it also calculates when the light isn't hitting something, like if it's blocked by a tree or another wall. I think that is the kind of thing you'll notice if you turn ray tracing on or off in a game, you really can see, oh, it's not sharper or anything, but it just looks more realistic. It looks more like you're used to things looking in the real world. I think with the extra power of the PS5 Pro, I hope more developers will be able to use it without, taking a frame rate hit.
Understood. Now, I would imagine that this list is going to increase over time. What games are set to be, quote, PS5 Pro enhanced? And then, or maybe you can name a couple. And then what exactly is that going to mean? How will they take advantage of the new hardware?
Yeah, I think there was a list of, they said 50 games would be available, and it's pretty much all the biggest ones you can name will have it. Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank, Last of Us Part 2. I'm trying to remember what else was on there, but the biggest games will definitely get these enhancements. Mm-hmm. I think as time goes on and the PS5 Pro gets into more households, more developers, maybe smaller developers, will also get those enhancements. But Sony also says that even if you don't tune the game for these enhancements, you'll be able to get upscaling upgrades on games that are not tuned for it, or even older PS4 games will supposedly look better with PS5 Pro. So we'll see how that goes once we have it in our hands, of course.
Understood. Now, you did mention the PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. So is this an upscaling system that they just have kind of given a unique name? And how would it compare then to something like, for example, again, this is coming from a layperson, a DVD, and I mean a literal DVD, not even Blu-ray, a DVD player that has 1080p upscaling, for example?
Yeah, that's a good comparison. If you have an old DVD that not even a Blu-ray that was designed for your tube TV, and you have an upscaling Blu-ray player, it won't make it look like a Blu-ray. You will definitely tell the difference if you had something that was sampled at that 1080p, but it'll make it look nicer. It'll make it look a little sharper around the edges, and that's what you'll pretty much see with PSSR. It's the same type of thing that NVIDIA has been doing for a long time with super sampling on its graphics drivers. And the idea is that it allows the game itself to be rendered at a lower resolution, and then it kind of fills in the gaps quickly, which allows for, again, faster frame rates. Yeah, I really want to see how this looks when it's actually in my living room, because in the past I've seen sometimes it works very well, and sometimes you see a lot of kind of fuzziness, a kind of crosshatch patterns where the AI is trying to fill in pixels and it's not really doing it well. Things have improved recently as machine learning is getting better, and hopefully Sony has learned from some of that experience. Understood.
Now, let's talk about the big thing that sticks out here, the thing that seems to be getting people upset, pricing. How does the PS5 Pro's pricing and kind of its positioning as this elite graphics package compare to other consoles that are on the market? The Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, and maybe even upcoming hardware that we are expecting from Nintendo or other players in the space, because there are also a lot of mobile device manufacturers that are working on making their consoles better. Where does this fit in the lineup, and what do you think about the price with your knowledge of kind of the gaming landscape?
Yeah, so the PS5 Pro is being offered at $700, and that is without a disc drive. If you want to play discs, you have an extra $80 on top of that. So when you compare that to $450 for the disc-free PS5, that's a big ask. $250 extra dollars. At that price, it's really going to be for the graphics heads, the people who really want top of the line. Price is not important. Sony did this before with the PS4 Pro, and as another mid-generation upgrade that also cost more. I think the PS4 Pro ended up being about 20% of all PS4s sold. So this is not the mass market device. This is for the niche, even within console gamers, of people who want just the best of the best. That said, there is a bit of sticker shock there. I think the last $700 console was the 3DO back in the 90s, and that's when $700 was, a huge amount, and the 3DO obviously failed very quickly, partly because it was so expensive. But $700 is not what it used to be. Just if you adjust for inflation, since the PS5 launched, the $500 that it cost then is more like $600 in today's money. So, I can see why they're charging that much, but also I don't think they're really aiming for a mass market price here. They're aiming at people where price is pretty much no object. They just want to show off. They want to know I have the best graphics. And they also want to know that this is a product that will last into the future, that, in 4 years, maybe $700 will not seem as much, or maybe they'll be able to reduce the cost. And this is preparing for that kind of interregnum between when the PS6 eventually comes out.
Got it. And then last but not least, I'll ask you, with the PS5 Pro being a mid-generation upgrade, what do you think it says about Sony's strategy for extending the PS5's life cycle as opposed to, PS6 and beyond?
Right. Yeah, like I said, they did this before with the PS4 Pro, but that didn't really extend how long the PS4 was on the market. It was still the same 6 or 7 years that we've seen between major console releases. And, that was partly driven by Microsoft releasing their new console. Both of them saw each other and said, oh, they're thinking about a new console, we have to do ours. Now, this time around, Microsoft is not doing a mid-generation upgrade, or has shown no signs of it yet, at least. So that leads to an interesting scenario. If Microsoft has been releasing more of its games on other consoles, its sales of the Xbox have been cratering well below expectations, there's a chance that we might not see another Xbox, or it might not be pushing the state of the art anymore. They might go more of a Switch route and focus on portables or something. If there isn't that push for Sony, it's hard to know where they're going to go with their next generation. Will they want to release a PS6 as quickly? Will the diminishing returns that they're getting from investing in all this hardware kind of lower the number of people who want a top-of-the-line system? Nintendo's new Switch will be coming out next year, most likely. And there's the Steam Deck as a competition too now. It seems like there's a divergence between, PS5 Pro at the high end really serving those people who care about having the most, and then things like the Switch and the Steam Deck, where it's lower end, but it's more convenient because you can play it portably and because it's much cheaper. So there's going to be a real divergence in the market there, and what Microsoft does will have a large impact on how quickly I think Sony will move.
Makes sense. Kyle, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to join us today to talk us through the PS5 Pro, helping me truly understand what ray tracing means and why it matters, and also some great details on PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution and what upscaling means when we're talking about something at this level. Of course, folks should head over to arstechnica.com to check out the great work that you're doing. Is that the place that they should go to keep up with what you're doing, or do you have any place online that they can go as well?
Yeah, that's where all my professional writing goes. You can also find me on Blue Sky, kyleor.land, which is my fun little URL that I just got.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And see you online.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. We appreciate it.